For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The man has a gift for teaching.
He was becoming a really big deal in both pop culture and also in the self-help, self-improvement world.
James was known for doing that. He can shred you. I've been shredding him. He liked me.
He was making expensive purchases. It was an empire, a lucrative empire he was running.
The suspicion is she may have gotten a bit shredded there, went out to this event, and she jumped off the third-story balcony of a shopping center.
This is True Crime Arizona, the podcast.
The greatest gift you've been given by your creative source, your marvelous mind. Your greatest spiritual calling is to find your purpose in this lifetime and to pursue it and to do it with excellence.
He was becoming a cultural phenomenon.
I was very impressed by his style, his energy on stage, his insight into people.
Very charismatic, which is, a common trait of a lot of these guru types.
When you align with the laws of the universe and use them in your favor, then you really can create whatever you desire and deserve.
He has a very kind of folksy way about him that I think definitely draws people in.
You see, when Michael Jordan was interviewed, they said, "Michael, why'd you play basketball?" He said, "Because I fully believe that's the reason I was sent to this life. That was my purpose. That's what I came here to do." And let me tell you something, that's every bit as spiritual as sitting on a meditation mat.
James Arthur Ray was at the forefront of what was the beginning of a massive movement in the 2005-2006 years, this self-help, self-healing spirituality kind of focus. It was a new concept for many. It seemed everyone had been introduced to James Ray and his teachings in the same way, a movie.
Throughout history, all the great minds, all the great leaders, all the great achievers, they had something in common.
He was one of the collaborators on The Secret, which was both a movie and a book. It was a blockbuster.
Well, we saw him first with the movie The Secret, and then in San Diego they had a free event to come meet him, and we did that, so that would have been back in 2006.
This is the great secret of life.
I knew he had been featured in The Secret, the book and the DVD, and that was where Kirby really first was introduced to him.
The Secret was a movie with a plot that revealed the great secret of the universe, a secret passed down through centuries that would lead to unlimited joy, health, money, relationships, love, and youth. The film featured experts from backgrounds of science, philosophy, and spirituality that would help the audience learn how they could find and learn the secret and use it in their everyday lives. James Ray was one of the movie's stars. From there, his stardom continued to rise quickly. He was on stage speaking constantly. People were hooked.
Because everything is spiritual.
Kirby Brown called her mom Ginny Brown. She was really excited to tell her mom about this cool event. In fact, she wanted her mom to come with her.
You actually went to some of these events with her. How did you guys first get involved with him and his teachings?
Kirby had asked me to go to the Harmonic Wealth 2-day introductory event in March of 2009. And initially, I was really busy at work, running workshops and doing therapy, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. And then I stopped and I said, wait a minute, my daughter is asking me to spend 2 whole days with her in a retreat-like environment where we're going to be talking about ourselves and learning things. And of course, I have to do that. This will be awesome.
Harmonic wealth. It's what James Ray would preach on stage and eventually write a popular book about.
I learned the secret of creating harmonic wealth in my life. That's a life that is wealthy and abundant in all key areas: financial, relational, mental, physical, and spiritual.
That's something Kirby Brown had been looking for. Her sister Jean Brown remembers where Kirby was in life at the time, living in Cabo San Lucas, and why James Ray's teachings really spoke to her.
Different things. She had really started to kind of create a life for herself there in Cabo. She was doing a decorative painting business with a business partner, and they were really doing very well, actually. And I think she was at the point in her career where she was looking to sort of expand the business and move forward and kind of get like to the next level. And so I think a lot of James Ray's messages about, you know, pushing beyond whatever maybe would have been holding you back a little bit really resonated with her because she was ready to get to that next place.
Jean was happy for her sister.
And then in her personal life, I think, you know, she had had some different relationships and she had seen both my sister and I get married that summer. And I think she was really looking to kind of settle down with a partner as well. But I remember her telling me, oh yeah, you've got to read this book. It's so great. And so yeah, she had definitely told us about it. And actually my parents had both been to James Ray events with her.
James would often use analogies to make a point about spirituality at his harmonic wealth events.
See, your one-on-one relationship with your creative source is a personal thing. It's your relationship, however you define that. And let me tell you something, that's every bit as spiritual as sitting on a meditation mat. And I've meditated since I was 18 years old, almost every single day, so I'm not anti-meditation. But I'm also here in this world, part of my purpose is to redefine spirituality, because everything is spiritual. It's not just about chanting and burning sage, and I do those things. There's a time and a place for those things. I'm not anti any of that. I've done it all. It's not just saying certain prayers or certain circumambulations or sitting on a mat or any of those. All those things are wonderful.
There was a lot of imagery and discussion of things like death and rebirth, and it was really meant to be a challenge to sort of let go of yourself and, you know, find the next level beyond whatever was holding you back.
There was something about James that just drew people in. At the event in Jersey City, Jenny could see the appeal. So could thousands and thousands of people.
And I mean, he was becoming a really big deal in both pop culture and also in the self-help, self-improvement world, which was exploding at the time.
Jared Dillingham is now the main evening anchor at Channel 3 and CBS 5 in Phoenix. But back when this story unfolded, he was at the center of it all, reporting on it.
He wrote his own bestseller. He was on Oprah. He was on the Today Show. He was on Larry King. He judged Miss America. So he was becoming a household name at the time, and people were showing up in droves to come watch him at these event spaces and convention centers and theaters all around the country.
This was James on Larry King Live.
You've got to go 3 for 3. You've got to have your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all firing and in alignment.
He was now running James Ray International and making millions of dollars.
It was an empire he was running. He had a lot of people working under him. He was making expensive purchases. It was an empire, a lucrative empire he was running.
I mean, he was living in Beverly Hills next to celebrities.
And he was also looking for more opportunities to increase his wealth. He wrote that huge book bestseller, Harmonic Wealth. And in his mind, he was practicing what he preached.
James Ray had figured it out, or so it seemed, how to live an abundant lifestyle in every single way. People wanted that too. With more followers and a lot more money came more and more events and activities and retreats. They became, let's say, involved.
Connie Joy, Conniejoy.
Well, what would you call yourself? A former client of James Ray's, or followed him?
Student. I would say a student. We weren't following. We're not the type of people to follow much of anything, but we were a student.
Like so many, Connie Joy and her husband, Richard Joy, first saw James Ray in The Secret, and then they went to their first James Ray event in San Diego. Immediately, Connie became part of James's inner circle.
How many events did you attend of his over the years?
I attended, in just the 3 years before that specific sweat lodge in 2009, we attended over 27 events, and we traveled with him to Egypt and Peru.
Over the course of the 3 years, how much money do you think you put into him and his events?
Oh, that's a scary thought. Probably $75,000 plus or minus up to $100,000.
But Connie was okay with that at the time. These events were bringing her deeper purpose.
It's like bending rebar with your throat, breaking boards or concrete with your hands, walk fire many, many times.
She was so thrilled with what she was learning, she started to write a book about it. When I started reading it for my own investigation, I was struck by these quote-unquote exercises they were doing. They were eccentric.
I read probably the first 70 to 90 pages of your book, and I was very confused by this homeless situation. Can you explain not only that, but also some of these odd activities you guys would do at his events, at several different events?
Yes. You probably have already picked it up in the book. We were having amazing breakthroughs and personal growth. No lying there. The man has a gift for teaching. He's always trying to push you out of your comfort zone. One of the examples you mentioned was the homeless. And we did that twice because we attended that event twice. And each one was a little different. Again, we were very successful business people, then realtors, then owners of real estate offices. And we find ourselves in downtown San Diego in rags, essentially shredded. You wouldn't want to walk up to us. And they dirty you up and they push you out there. And the whole thing was, you get more comfortable being uncomfortable, but then start to use your wits. How do if you want to eat something, you're going to have to figure out how to do this.
People wanted to do this. Connie wasn't the only one finding purpose from this, and nobody really thought anyone was in danger with James Ray or at his events. If anything, they were raving about becoming better versions of themselves. It's what drew 46-year-old Colleen Conaway to the San Diego event in July of 2009. Connie's daughter also went to the event. Connie had done it before, so she just showed up for the dinner portion to socialize and mingle. Colleen Conaway wasn't at the dinner.
So we ended up staying for the dinner and no clue that something had happened. I got a clue from our one mutual friend who was working there that something happened really bad to Colleen Conaway because they got a message that she left and she's not coming back. And he said to me, well, what do you have to do to be thrown out in the middle of an event and told you can't come back? And I said, well, that's just plain weird. But they're all partying, they're all dancing, it's a black tie dinner. No clue. I talked to James, I talked to all the heads of the JRI group, and not a clue off of any of them that something was wrong. And we found out it was weeks later.
Colleen had been part of the homeless exercise. Her family told news stations at the time Colleen had been excited about this 3-day seminar in San Diego. She was coming from Minnesota. One of the participants didn't realize what he was seeing at first until it was too late. During the homeless exercise, he watched Colleen Conaway put her hands up, fall forward, then leap 30 feet down to her death off the third-floor balcony of the Horton Plaza, near where a group of children were performing. She was sent to the hospital as a Jane Doe because she didn't have her ID or cell phone on her since she was pretending to be homeless. According to the CBS San Diego station, James Ray's group didn't report her missing for 7 hours. Her death was ruled a suicide. Before she died, Colleen had spent $12,000 paying for that event, plus 2 upcoming James Ray events. When Connie found out about what happened, she didn't like what seemed to be a lack of transparency from James and his staff.
She went there excited. Her own sister and her family were saying she took a lot of money and went to San Diego to do this event. She was excited because she was getting ready to start her own business. And the suspicion was that she was all excited about her plan. She may have talked to James and got herself shot down. James was known for doing that. He can shred you. I've been shredded by him now, and he liked me. But the suspicion is she may have gotten a bit shredded there, went out to this event, and she jumped off the 3rd-story balcony of a shopping center. And again, nobody said anything. When they all got back on the buses, nobody said a word.
It was a first of strange things that happened during 2009. Connie and her husband had committed years to James Ray and a lot of money, but things quickly started to feel off to Connie.
Over the course of that year, we started to see James change. He was originally approachable. You could get to him, you could talk to him. In the middle of 2008, suddenly he had bodyguards. Even us who were considered his inner circle, and he's even said to me many times, oh, you don't have to stop for the bodyguards, just tell them to let you in. But it was still, okay, this is a little intimidating. It's not very open. He wouldn't stay for pictures after events with people. I mean, they spent 2 weeks of their life and a lot of money to be through this entire event with you. You could sit there for a minute and smile, but no, he wasn't doing that either. And beginning of 2009, I just said, no, I'm not comfortable with this. And then we had something happen with the World Wealth Society that really showed me that we weren't comfortable. This was it. We're leaving. We're finishing out our events in 2009 and we're done.
The World Wealth Society. What was that?
We were founding members of the World Wealth Society. And when it was started, the idea was that it was world wealth. We were going to come up with a philanthropic project that was hopefully self-sustaining, international for the world. And that's what interested us, and that's why we joined. Now, it was extremely expensive, between $60,000 and $120,000. But we were led to believe that money was going to go to the startup, seed money for the foundation or for the project. So it was a stretch, but we were okay. We felt that's what we wanted to do at this point in our life, and that was a good thing to do. Over that course of that year, he wasn't getting enough people to sign on for that. So it started to change into being more of a business networking group as opposed to this philanthropic spiritual exploration group. And by the end of it, they said, don't worry about the project, because they kept putting it off. They said, we were going to discuss that in Mexico. We had a private trip down in Mexico with just our members. And we were going to define what our project wanted to be. So we spent most of that trip defining different projects that we all wanted to work on. It was just a few days after, we already had to have our money in for the following year for the World Wealth Society. So we're paying that money now. It's in. James never gives you your money back, ever. At the end of that event, we found out that, okay, now we have to support financially our projects. How are you going to pay for it?
This was money James was asking from them on top of the $60,000 to $100,000 they had already spent. Connie felt deceived and lied to.
And it was at that moment, I remember where I was sitting in Mexico. I remember the color of the rug. I remember it just finally went, oh my God. The only person we made wealthy out of the World Wealth Society was James Ray.
Even though she knew she would be leaving James Ray and his circle, Connie and her husband still wanted to honor the trip they already committed to, Peru. It's where Connie first felt things were a little dangerous, like an intensive and risky hike James wanted everyone to do.
In Peru, we ended up having a very public yelling match with him in the Peruvian hotel right at the base of Machu Picchu, because he was turning something that is dangerous. Climbing Huayna Picchu is dangerous. You give them your name, address, who to contact to collect your body, okay? And he's now turning it into a foot race for no reason. There was no reason it had to be a rush. There was people much older than me, much even less physically capable. I mean, I'm no spring chicken, but you didn't have to rush, and it had just rained the day before, so it was slippery and it was dangerous. I made arrangements to have one of the guides stay behind with us. So if there were stragglers, they would take the stragglers and bring them back to Cusco. He didn't like that. I was enabling people to fail, and we had it out. That was it. And when we got back to our room, we're like, okay, this is it. We're going home. We're done. He didn't see that he was pushing people too hard. He says, you're just enabling people. You're coddling people.
His demeanor seemed to change. Even on stage, pushing people seemed to be part of his shtick. Kirby Brown found it inspiring, but her mom, Ginny Brown, found it to be too much, even if she was impressed by his stage presence and charisma.
There were some things that I was uncomfortable with. He was all about money and making more money. That was a big thrust. When you think about your dreams for the future, you have to put a dollar sign on it. Well, there's a lot of things in my life that don't have a dollar sign on them, but they're very valuable to me.
According to the ancients, your na'au never, ever lies. Your head, on the other hand, will mess you up every single time.
As a therapist, he had people up on stage revealing very deep psychological issues, and that's dangerous. I was very put off by that. That's not a good thing to do. That's very dangerous for someone, because they're prompted to reveal deep personal things in front of a big audience of people. But you can't do that without walking someone through that and giving them appropriate follow-up. So I did not like that at all.
I mean, this is my job, and I love it.
Those were all things that now, looking back, those are really red flags of someone who is deliberately creating compliance through suggestibility.
It was enough for Ginny to opt out of going to another James Ray event with Kirby in California. Kirby's dad went with her this time. It was there Kirby Brown signed up for SEDONA.
He had a progression of seminars where you start at an entry level and then you work your way up. Spiritual Warrior, the one that they had in SEDONA, was the pinnacle. It's like the top of the pyramid. You're working your way all the way through the other events to get to that level.
It's the place so many of James Ray's followers strive to get to. This greater purpose, this ultimate cleansing of the body, mind, and spirit to start anew.
Because when you align with the laws of the universe and use them in your favor, then you really can create whatever you desire and deserve.
In SEDONA, you'd find enlightenment. At least those who signed up for it thought that's what they would find.
There was something going on at that event that was not right.
They trusted him. They trusted him.
This is an act. This is scary. This is not okay.
Okay, what's the problem?
2 people, hard breathing, with no pulse.
Next time on True Crime Arizona, the SEDONA Sweat Lodge deaths.
What is a vortex?
Well, from what I know, is a vortex is a location where people can go into different dimensions. And there are vortexes allegedly around the SEDONA area.
Had I known how expensive it was, I would have questioned her, but she never revealed that to me.
We didn't know the red flags to look for at that time. In retrospect, now we know, but at the time, it seemed totally legitimate.
You were sleep deprived, you were probably dehydrated, and certainly didn't have enough food in you. So I was concerned.
True Crime Arizona, the podcast, is hosted by me, Brianna Whitney, and produced by Sergio Hernandez. It's a production of Arizona's Family, 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.